A Teresa Ribera, la Presidente della Commissione europea Ursula von der Leyen, ha affidato un compito molto difficile: difendere la concorrenza ma anche favorire l'evoluzione del mercato in modo da consentire una transizione ecologica di cui l'Europa ma anche il resto del mondo hanno bisogno. E dopo un'esperienza da ministra in Spagna, che è stata considerata da molti un modello di come costruire appunto una transizione ecologica equa e a sostegno della crescita, Teresa Ribera è quindi diventata vicepresidente esecutiva della Commissione europea con la delega a una transizione giusta, competitiva e pulita. Siamo molto contenti di averla qui con noi in collegamento da Bruxelles. Benvenuta, vicepresidente.
Grazie.
Prego.
Well, good afternoon, good evening. And thanks a lot for inviting me to join you in this very particular and important occasion, celebrating the involvement of Mario Monti, but also the involvement of the launch of the Single Market and the European Act not so far ago, but a long time ago. In fact, the world had changed deeply. I could start once I have expressed my gratitude to Professor Monti and to the Universidad Bocconi for the invitation by saying that I could subscribe everything that has been said by Enrico Letta, but I would add some additional comments to his introductory speech on this topic, on what we expect from Europe, how we can work on Europe, how we can keep on building Europe. Starting to say that, in fact, if we take into consideration how this whole project started, thinking that we could work on coal, steel, that we could build a peace project by joining forces and sharing goods and resources and organize a governance around some of them. And where we are today, we have made lots of progress. And we have made lots of progress so to become a very particular leader in how to create prosperity and how to pay back to the main goal to increase the quality of life of Europeans and to irradiate this willingness to build peace and prosperity all over the world. So yes, we may be facing very difficult challenges. We may have lots of shortages, but I could say that this project that could be considered a drop in the ocean of history is still so important and attractive to stand up and to defend it. And the only way to defend this project is to be aware of what the world looks like today and to keep on building and driving in this integration of Europe in the decades to come, in the years to come. And this decade in particular is very important because of the given context in the geopolitical framework, but because of the shortages, the expectations, the limitations, or the necessity to untap the potential of a much more integrated and prosperous Europe if we handle things in a wise way. I could say that, yes, we may be living in a different context where there may be some of the traditional allies that is saying that they do not want to contribute as far as they have done today to the support of some common global goods, such as defense or a strong dollar being supporting many of the trade operations of the financial operations all over the world. And they frame it in such a way that is not particularly helpful because we may all understand that there are things to improve, but not to renounce to the importance of multilateralism, cooperation, or the identification of way forwards together on how to solve the problems. We are witnessing, as Enrico Letta was saying, that a country that not so far ago was a poor country, a huge country in terms of population and in terms of surface with lots of resources and a fantastic heritage legacy in terms of history, but a poor country in terms of the UN parameters and the capacity to count on the provision of goods and services to its population, has become a leader in many aspects, including technology aspects, to the point that not so far ago, there were hard discussions on how to ensure the access to technology, transfer of technology towards developing countries in many different settings in the UN context, and this is not anymore a high demand coming from developing countries. And the moment where this started to happen is probably at the very same moment where the leadership on these clean technologies was taken by someone else. So yes, we count on a different reality. We count on many leaders trying to develop its own capacities, and this means that we Europeans are not anymore the ones providing the conditions for the offer, the demand, the markets, the technologies, but we are still powerful and has lots of strengths. We have an educated society. We have business that do understand the way to provide and to bet on innovation. We have a society that wants to respect this high quality life, high quality level of performance. We know that our society could not accept a race to the bottom in terms of protection of labor standards, protection of environmental standards. We have the capacity to innovate. We have the capacity to keep on betting on how we can promote this modernization of our industrial facilities and to retain talent, very much in particular when dealing with our young generations. But we may need to look into these external and internal challenges differently, and we may need to look into the challenges quick, so to provide responses and not only assessments on how to proceed. Allow me to come into this discussion with some ideas and some responses on how we are trying to dedicate to shape this work program for this mandate in the Commission in this very special, particular and relevant decade to ensure that we can still give the right answers to the current challenges together. And I may come back to Enrico's later comment. Yes, we are still a fragmented continent. We have done a lot. We still count on many relevant prospects, positive prospects. The euro area is projected to grow by 0.9% in 2025, in 1.2% in 2026, in 1.3% in 2027, even in such a given context of uncertainty and with so many difficulties all over the world. But it shows to what extent we are resilient despite global and domestic challenges. We know that if we bet on how we can create wealth, how we can identify the barriers that still exist, we can get better jobs, incomes, living standards, and we may modernize our industry. We know that we will only succeed if we remain united in these challenges. And we know that the single market is quite an important asset. The attractiveness of counting on 450 million people that demand high quality services, high quality goods is very appealing. The other thing that we know is that maybe many others interested in entering into the single market. So how we can ensure a level playing field within the single market, how we can ensure a level playing field in the international context, taking into consideration that the open economy, that the European economy is, plays also in a global economy where there may be many others interested to accede into our internal markets, but at the very same time, we should be in a position to defend that for the same reasons we enter into this capacity to confirm that the level playing field plays its role in the single market. It should be demanded in the global markets in the interest of those willing to be part of our market. I was impacted by the figures being provided by the International Monetary Fund, saying that the internal market barriers equal 45% tariff when thinking about goods, 110% tariffs when dealing with services. It goes along the same lines that both Enrico Letta and Mario Draghi stated, but it shows to what extent we still need to deepen into the single market. And this means working in many different fields. Some sectors where still this is quite a challenge. because of the role that being played by the different member states when thinking about telecom, when thinking about energy, when thinking about banking and capital markets, savings and investments union, when thinking about physical interconnections, digital capacities, we identify lots of aspects where we still miss the union. This means that we need to work down in this set of unions: energy union, capitals union, transportation and infrastructures, services, capacity to ensure that permitting takes place in a much more quicker manner, or capacity to ensure that the competition tools do work for purpose, to fit for purpose, when thinking on how we can count on the adequacy in terms of supporting the talent, supporting the innovation, supporting the resilience, supporting the investment. How competition is still a helpful element to ensure that the champions that we want to build take the conditions to ensure that they will be long-lasting champions and not champions in a given market with no incumbents, with incumbents not being challenged by new champions or new ideas that come from the scratch. How we can ensure that when using public funding, public money, we are not creating distortions that do not help something that could be covered by the market or something that could be better managed at a different scale. How we can introduce elements that do underline the European interest over the local interest or the national interest. How we can ensure that when thinking about the new big players in the economy, such as the digital players, we do not rely on something that will create additional vulnerabilities or that will fit into a much more monopoly position coming from the big tech, killing the possibility to count on innovation in this field coming from Europe or somewhere else. How we can think about foreign investments that could count on subsidies coming from their original member states, the original public budgets that could create unfair competition with the existing incumbents in Europe. How we can work in a field that should revise what we may identify as the best to modernize the industry. And in that context, I think that we have made a good exercise in the previous decades, in the previous mandates, so to work on what are the strategic bets for Europe, how we can count on the much more modern technologies that could help into a much more efficient use of the resources through the decarbonization, through the modernization of the energy systems, through the interconnections, both in transport, digital, and energy context, and how we can work in a context where there may be a possibility to rely on the others when thinking about the joint partnerships to build new solutions. Fragmentation in key sectors should be avoided. It doesn't help to big companies, but it does not help either to small companies. It hurts the small and medium enterprises that struggle to comply with multiple national rules. And very honestly, from the Commission, we can work, but this requires a deep involvement, a deep political commitment coming from the member states too. So how we can work in a way that the different layers of decision to identify how to remain united because of opportunistic reasons or because, as it is obvious, the only way to become economically viable, industrially modern, and providing the certainty and the opportunities to the different players is to remain united. The good thing in this context is that there is a great opportunity that is being opened because of this capacity to remain predictable, stable, and well-oriented, strategically oriented towards the future. There may be opportunities connected to the development and investment in our grounds, in our continent. And there may be also opportunities to develop things that we have not been able to seize as it would require in the international context, in the external action, in the external policies of the European Union. Because we may be more stable, more predictable, because there may be a capacity to tackle with other partners to ensure how we can combine our decisions, our willingness to count on critical materials, to count on the possibility to develop a new alliance with third countries. We may try to steer a much more consistent approach when dealing with domestic policies and external policies. So that deepening into the single market could be important. Ensuring an update of the competition tools could be important. Combining that with the trade policies, with the diplomacy, with the capacity to ensure a much more consistent alliance with third countries could be important. And betting on multilateralism will still remain something where many people will be waiting for the European Union as the productive and consistent player in a moment where there will be many citizens all over the world wondering what it is going to happen, where someone which used to be at the origin of this new modern multilateralism seems to step down. We have some appointments in the months to come, relevant appointments in the months to come. We need to see what it may happen in the context of this open trade war that has been launched not so far ago, last month of April, to build around capacities to respond in case this finally materializes, but also to strengthen the capacity to be resilient together with the rest of the world. The United States may represent around 30% of the global trade, but there are many other players in the world that could be waiting and willing to ensure that they have the capacity, the possibility to keep on building and deepening alliance with other big markets, starting by the big market that the European single market represents. So both in domestic policies and in the external policies, there is a huge list of things to be developed, to be deepened. And there is a huge task that deserves our attention and that will bring us to claim that we need to stand up, to fight for Europe, to fight for democracy, and to fight for our own values, knowing that even in this given context, with all the difficulties, we have the strengths and the capacities to provide the right answers if we remain united and we keep on diving into this common space united. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice President Ribera. Since you are not here with us, I would like anyway to take this opportunity to ask you a question that was raised by the publication we had for this event and the academic part of our annual event. Basically, in 1985, the businesses supporting the integration process were primarily manufacturing firms, which stood to benefit greatly from economies of scale and the reduction of barriers in the construction of the single market. Today, has the integration process slowed down because there are no longer businesses pushing for it? I mean, the most influential firms today, those in big tech, seem to prefer a weaker Europe and would rather deal with individual governments than with the Commission. Mentioning national governments, does competition policy now play a significant role in the integration process? And do governments see it as a useful tool for building a stronger and more competitive union, or as an obstacle to the new imperatives of security and defense? Just a quick answer, but since you're not here with us, we take this opportunity. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. I think that this is quite a relevant question dealing with different aspects around this mandate, this competition demand, and this understanding on how we can be much more competitive, which is the word that we hear more and more when we think about competitiveness or when we think about security. So the two fashionable words, we cannot think about them without taking into consideration the strategic goals. This is why the clean, the green, the decarbonization or the efficient use of materials is important in terms of substantial goals to be supported, but also the tools, how we ensure that the level playing field takes place and how we ensure that those having an idea can challenge the incumbents. So the competition policy has a very important role, even if being updated in this global context of an integrated economy as the European one, an open economy as the European one, but to ensure the level playing field. And yes, I think that in a moment where we may feel the panic because too many things are changing in such a short period of time, there is the temptation to come to the safe space at the local level. So there is a temptation to keep those barriers at the national level or to defend our small market and to avoid entering into the broader scope of the European Union or the global markets. And I think that we need to pay much attention to that because that won't last. That won't help any company to grow up. If we think of China, all the big companies have been growing in these last 15 years through hard competition. And I think that we should not be competing for low labor cost or by saying that we can accept any type of environmental harm, so lowering the standards in terms of environmental protection, but thinking on how we can innovate and how we can bid into these strengths in the single market. So thinking beyond the national borders within the internal market. But yes, energy, telecoms, finance are still having these barriers. I think that because of the difficulties around the energy crisis, because of the shake that the United States position may represent, we have even more reasons why we need to accelerate this deepening into the internal market, because we cannot rely on something that we do not control, that we don't even have a possibility to take a stake on how it is governed. And we are now thinking about the digital services and the digital markets. We need to update and to try to modernize the way we can enter into this given market also. So I think that both in terms of the traditional tools that the competition services have been used being updated because of the need to count on these new tools in a much more integrated global economy, and because we can only respond to the challenges by acting together and the need to reduce the national borders, we need to bet hard on what it was the original appetite to create the single market and to adopt the changes that were supported and the spirit that was supporting the changes in the 90s, and to modernize these views in a much more clear manner.
The Vice President Ribera, we are deeply thankful for your intervention here at our annual event.
Thank you.
Grazie, ringraziamo quindi ancora la Vicepresidente Ribera.